So hi guys, and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again. I'm in the Peak District again today. I came here a few months ago and recorded my first vlog from this area, and I decided that I really wanted to come back and see something a little bit different that I hadn't seen last time. Previously I was at Bamford Edge, and I climbed up there and did a circular walk around Bamford Edge and then dropped back down to the Ladybow Reservoir and then headed home from there. But this time, instead of going all the way to Bamford, I've caught the same train, and instead of going all the way to Bamford, like I said, I've got off the train at Grindleford, which is very close to Sheffield, about 15 minutes outside of Sheffield. And from here I've got on to a place called Padley Gorge, and this is basically where I am right now. It's beautiful here. The light and the colours are absolutely perfect. It's just the right time of year to be here, right at the end of the summer, and probably next month heading into the autumn season. But we've just got a decent spell of weather, so I thought I would come out here today and record another vlog while I'm here. It's a lovely place. I haven't been here very long and I've never been here before, so I'm going to have a bit of a wander around and see what I can capture here. But also then I'd like to go to a place called Frogg Edge. Now from here, just over in that direction, about 500 yards, is Grindleford train station. If I walk back to there and then cross the station and then carry on southwards, I'll eventually get to Frogg Edge. But for now, I'm going to walk up Padley Gorge and see what else I can find up here. I've just taken one decent shot here, so I'll put that on for you now. Hope you like that image. I'm testing out a new lens today, so hopefully the images will be quite good. Basically for about 6 or 7 years now I've been using the 17 to 40mm EF L series lens, but obviously now I've got a mirrorless camera which takes the RF mount. I've had to use an adapter so that I can keep the lens on the new camera, but I've bought now a brand new lens which fits directly to the camera. I'm currently using it to film. It's the 14 to 35mm f4 RF lens, so it fits perfectly on this camera, and so far I'm loving it. It's only the second time I've actually taken it out and taken any shots with it, but it's the first time I've really given it a real good going over, a real good usage, to be honest with you. I popped out a few weeks ago to take some photos, some urban photos with it in Wolverhampton, but I wasn't out very long, only about an hour or so, and I quite enjoyed the lens then, but I'm really liking the images that I'm getting out of it today. I don't know whether that's just the area that I'm in or not, but I found this bridge just behind me, just here, and I've photographed it from over this side, and now I'm going to cross the bridge and see if I can photograph it from another part of the bridge, or even just from here. The previous photograph, I couldn't really put the tripod down anywhere because there wasn't anywhere to put it at all, so I had to get really, really close to the river itself, and I was looking at some beautiful little cascades that were dropping down the river as where I was standing, and they were leading nicely to the bridge at the top end of the image. I think that one's worked out quite well. Love the colours and love the light on it, but I had to hand hold that, so there's just one straight image straight out of the camera. However, I might be able to put my tripod down here and get an image of this bridge from somewhere around about this area, so I'm just going to have a quick wander around and see if I can find the perfect composition for that, and if I can, I'll probably bracket the exposures on this one. So here's the image anyway. So whilst I was there trying to take a photo of that bridge, there were people walking past, and I thought, well, I'll watch and see where they go and see where the path takes them once they get off the bridge. And as I did so, I noticed that they were finding it challenging to climb the steps at the other side of the bridge. And I suddenly thought, is it worth me going up there? Well, obviously the answer was yes, so I have done that myself, and those steps were quite a challenge on their own, to be quite honest, but they didn't go on for very long, and I've got myself on a slightly more level part of the path now, and I found a stone bench to sit on, so I've stopped here to just take a rest, capture my breath, and also get a drink. But I'm going to move on and see if I can find another photo. I don't know where the path leads me to now. Like I say, I've never been here before. It's just one I wanted to come and have a look at and see what I could do here. That last image, I didn't need to bracket the exposures in the end. I discovered that the exposure was just right at 1/30th of a second. Yeah, 1/30th of a second. But I also dropped the ISO down to 200 and shot it at f4. Obviously where I was stood for that image, I was looking straight on along the bridge, so there was a bit of depth in the image. So instead of actually bracketing the exposures, what I've done is I've focused at those, taken one image at the front of the bridge, just on the steps where I'm focused, and then as you go along the bridge, I've focused on the steps at the back of the bridge that then carry on slightly further up. And then I've also focused on a little part of the gorge just to the left-hand edge of where those steps are. Obviously I'll be combining those images together in Adobe Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop at the end of the day, and I'll probably put a little snippet of me doing that in this video as well. So as you will see, I now have Adobe Lightroom open, and down here in my tray at the bottom I've got the 3 images. You can also see the 3 images there on my screen. Basically if I click on each one, I can show you exactly where my focus is. In this one here, the focus is on the steps at the front of the bridge here, and then in the second one my focus would be on the steps here at the back of the bridge, and then in the third one my focus is on this area somewhere over here. So I've actually got 3 different planes of focus to create the image with, and now I want to combine all of those together. So to do that, I'm going to have to actually open these images as layers in Photoshop. So the first thing I do is hold down my Shift key and highlight all 3 of the images there in the tray, so you'll see now they're all highlighted. And then at that point then I go to Photo and Edit in, and then I go down to Open as Layers in Photoshop. And the idea here is that then I'm going to start opening up those 3 different layers as 3 separate layers in one image file. And then I'm going to combine those 3 separate layers together and create just one file out of it, rather than 3 separate files that I've got here at the moment. So basically the reason I'm doing this is I want to make sure that I've got everything in focus from the front to the back of the image, rather than just having one specific area in focus. I've got the images opened up as layers in Photoshop. I'm going to open up the layers panel as well to make sure I've got all 3 layers ready to be selected. And as you see, the layers panel here is already open. I'm still waiting for the images to completely upload, and that looks as though that's happened now. So I've got at the top of the layers panel here, the top layer in the tray is the one that's highlighted, and you can see that's highlighted with a slightly lighter grey colour than the other 2 layers. So what I want to do is combine these layers together. So the first thing I have to do is hold down my Shift key and click on the bottom image, bottom layer. So now you've got all 3 layers which are highlighted there, as you can see. And then I will go into the edit menu, and just over halfway down the edit menu you'll see here auto align layers. That's the very first thing I want to do. You'll notice in projection it's already got auto clicked and everything else is perfectly okay. So at this point I'll just click OK anyway. And what I'm trying to do now is align the layers, because when I was out in the field taking the photographs, what sometimes happens is, as I press the shutter button to capture the next photo, the camera may move a very tiny little bit, or sometimes there'll be a little bit of a breeze that moves the camera very, very slightly, or even just in between taking the images, I might knock the tripod very slightly and it just slips a little bit and moves everything out of alignment. The idea is to make sure here that everything is aligned so that you can start blending the images a little bit better. If they're not aligned, the layers aren't aligned properly, the image won't blend in the end. So now that I've blended the layers there, I'll go back to edit, and directly underneath auto align layers, you've got auto blend layers. Now what this does is it will take the sharpest focus point from each of those separate layers and combine them into one layer, which is what I'm trying to do here. So when I open up auto blend layers, what I get is this dialog box which shows me the panorama or stack images. Now obviously I'm not creating a panorama here, so I've got stack images selected. Seamless tones and colours is also selected. Content aware fill transparent areas is also selected, and this will ensure that as I am combining the three layers together, any areas which don't combine properly will be able to be seamlessly blended into the image with the rest of the layers, so it will look as though nothing has changed in the image, but actually I've got three different focal points all in one layer. So I'll just click OK, and that will start that going. And at the end of this little progress bar, when all of the images have been aligned and blended, what you'll notice is there's an extra layer in the layers panel, and there are also some masks that will show in the layers panel on each of the individual started with. So I'll just wait while that does its thing and gets us set up ready. So as you can see now, I've got my layers panel here. I've got one image at the top, an extra image at the top, which is now the active layer. The other three layers underneath are all the original three files where I shot different focal points in each of those three files. And you can see here we have the masks next to them on each of the layers. And this is where basically black will show you where I'm in focus, and the white areas will show the areas that are out of focus. And as you can see here, we've got 1, 2, 3 different focal planes in each of those images, and you can tell that by the masks that are there. But obviously the top layer now has become the active layer, and that has got all of the original three focus points all combined into one layer. The next thing to do at this point, obviously now, is to flatten the image or merge all the layers. So with the top layer now being the active layer and also highlighted on the layers panel, if I hold down Shift again and click on the bottom layer, I highlight all four layers once again. And now I'll go up here to the layer menu and right down to the very bottom and move that down a little further, and I say merge visible. I could say flatten image if I wanted to. It does precisely the same thing, to be quite honest, but in this case I'm just going to say merge layers, and then I'll close my layers panel. You will notice at this point that there's a little bit of what we call zebras here at the edges of the image. Now I mentioned earlier about aligning the image, and sometimes the files themselves might be slightly misaligned because of any movement that happens where you move the tripod or the camera moves very slightly, or you impart a little bit of movement as you're pressing the shutter button. Here you'll see that as the layers have been aligned, these edges are where those kind of overlaps have taken place, and you've got those extra bits where there isn't anything aligned at all. So it doesn't matter, because when I go back to Lightroom to start editing the rest of this image, what will happen is I'll be able to crop all of that extra bit out that I don't want. So I'll get rid of all of those zebras there that we've got on the edges. Also, I can do that in Photoshop. I'm not going to at the moment. I'll do that in Lightroom when I get it back over there. But for now, all I want to do is save the image. So now I just go to File and click Save. At this point, it's important to remember, don't click Save As. What I want to do is just simply click Save. And what that will do, it will save this image file now. And then once I've saved the file, and you'll see the progress bar here for saving at the bottom is going blue as it eventually moves up towards the end of the save. Once that's finished saving, all I have to do then is simply close Photoshop. And I'll show you that right now, because when I close Photoshop, it will automatically carry this image over to Lightroom for me, whilst I've still got the original Lightroom catalogue open. So I'm just going to close Photoshop like that, and that will get closed down. You'll now see here in the tray at the bottom of my Lightroom catalogue, I've now got 4 images rather than 3 images. The one that's highlighted is the one that we've just aligned and blended the layers of, and the other 3 are the 3 original layers. Now obviously at this point I mentioned that I can crop those zebras out of the edge of the image. I'm going to do that straight away, but I'm also going to add a 4x5 crop, which is something I always do. So I'm going to open up the basic tab here, and I'm going to hit the crop tool, and then I'm going to go down here to where it says original. I'm going to hit that, and there's a drop down menu with 4x5 here in it. There are a lot of other options as well that I could have chosen. In this case, I like to choose a 4x5 ratio, so I'm going to crop that, but also I will go here to the top corner of the image, and I'll slightly move that in just a few pixels, and then slightly adjust exactly where I want the image to be, so that I know that my crop works quite well on this particular image. And I think something like that is going to look perfect. So I'm just going to then click enter on the keyboard, and there we have the image completely stacked as I wanted it to be. And that basically is how we do a focus stack. So I've got 3 separate layers, and you'll see the 3 separate layers here, and they have all been combined now to create one layer. And I've also created a nice 4x5 crop, which is nice for a lot of images, to be quite honest with you, particularly in landscape photography. It gives you a very nice crop ratio to work with. Now at this point, obviously, I could then go on and continue to edit some of this file within Adobe Lightroom. That is what I'm going to do in just a little while. But for now, that's all I wanted to show you. So back to the rest of the video. So I had to watch my step quite a bit as I was walking through that woodland. It's a beautiful spot, don't get me wrong, but there's quite a lot of tree roots that stick up all over the path, and quite a lot of rocks, and all kinds of things that you can trip over and fall on. And it's very, very muddy as well in some areas, because we have had a little bit of rain, but also because some of it doesn't get any sunshine at all to dry it out. So I was finding that a little bit difficult. Eventually, however, I found myself in a bit of a cutting. I managed to come out of the woodland and found a little spot where there was a beautiful little cascade just dropping down a few of the stones, the rocks in the water, and it looked beautiful. Difficulty I had is, I don't know if you can hear all the noise around me, difficulty I had is, it seems to be quite a popular picnic spot. So whilst I was trying to set up a shot of that cascading waterfall, I found that there were people, kids mainly, stepping on the stones, on the rocks, and climbing up and over exactly where my composition was. Made it very difficult, so I had to wait a little while until I could actually get a shot. But I managed to in the end. But I've also just discovered why this is such a popular picnic spot. Just over in that direction behind you, there's a little slope up to a road, and there's a path that leads up it with an ice cream van sitting at the top of the path. Now it is lunchtime, so obviously I'm going to stop here and have a picnic myself. I've got myself a packed lunch in the bag, but I think you guys know exactly what's going to happen afterwards. Once I've had my lunch, I've got to celebrate a bit with an ice cream, and then from there I'm going to try and make my way over to Frogg Edge if I've got the time. I think I should have. but I'm keeping an eye on the time today because I don't want to miss my train. Anyway, I'm going to have my lunch and get an ice cream and then head over to Frogg Edge. As you can see, I'm right in the heart of the Peak District right now, with all these fabulous views out behind me. It's quite misty and murky, so you can't really see an awful lot, but I don't know what those peaks are all called behind me, but I am actually walking down now towards Frogg Edge. I'm on the right path, so I know where I'm going. There is a pub along the way as well. I don't know whether I've got time to stop in it and have a drink, but I'll certainly be on the right route once I pass that pub. And then hopefully from there I can make it to Frogg Edge in plenty of time. Just over in this direction somewhere is Grindleford Station, where I caught the train to earlier this morning. You can't see it from here, obviously, because we're high up in the peaks now. But at some point I've walked up through the gorge, through the woodland just there behind me, and crossed the river somewhere over in this direction, and then started walking down this path here. So I know I'm on the right path. It's just a case of whether or not I've got the time to get to where I need to be. And I think there's going to be some more interesting images along the way as well. So it turns out I can't get to Frogg Edge. Not going this way anyway. I'm sure there must be another way to it from some other direction. But I've followed the path in the right direction to get to Frogg Edge. And unfortunately there is a main road with no crossing and no pavement either side of it. So it means I would have to walk down a major A road to get to where I want to be without any protection from the oncoming traffic or traffic from behind. So I didn't think it was worth taking the risk. It's one thing I don't do on this channel, is take unnecessary risks. I do take some risks if I think the reward is going to be worth it, but I'm not going to get myself run over just for the sake of getting to a nice spot. So I've taken the decision to head back where I come from, and probably walk back down through the gorge again back to Grindleford and see where I am when I get there, what the time is. So maybe, just maybe, the skies will clear a little bit so I can get an image somewhere over in that direction of the beautiful views that I can see, but they're not very easy to pick out with a camera. So let's hope so, eh? I've got back to a spot I was in about 10 minutes ago, just before I went down to find that main road was going to stop me in my tracks. And I thought originally there was a view out here somewhere. Looking at it again, I still think there is, but it's going to mean taking out the long lens, 100 to 400mm, and zooming right in, probably all the way to 400mm to try and capture the scene over there. I don't know how well you can see it behind me, but there are a few peaks just over in the distance, just over in this direction. And in front of that there's also a bit of a valley that's kind of at the edge of the gorge that I've just walked through. And just as the light is hitting those peaks and the valley itself, it's looking quite nice. So hopefully I can capture an image here, but like I say, it's going to be the 100 to 400mm lens and maybe zoomed right in. Let's see if I can capture this image for you. Well, this is very interesting. I've walked back through the Woodland Gorge on my way back down to Grindleford train station, and earlier on in the day I walked up some very sketchy steps after crossing a bridge. Well, I think I've overshot those on the way through the gorge, so I haven't had to walk down those steps again. However, before I started my vlog this morning, I started walking up a path away from the railway station, and I suddenly thought to myself, I'm not sure this is the correct path. So I turned round and walked back and then followed the path along the edge of the gorge and up those sketchy steps across that bridge. Well, now I think I've come to the path where I originally changed my mind and turned back round and went the other way. And if that's the case, I'm pretty sure it is, because the surface looks familiar and the surroundings look very familiar. So if that is the case, I'll be back at Grindleford train station in just a few minutes. I've got a little bit of time to kill before my train arrives, so I think I might have a little bit of a walk down the road and see if I can find a little pub to have a drink and something to eat maybe, and just relax and rest myself for an hour or so. That's if I've got the time to do so. Alternatively, I could just look at the train station to see what time the next train is due, and then see if I can go back into Sheffield and stop off there for a little while instead. Either way, I'm going to leave the vlog here. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, and if you've enjoyed the images, please remember to give the video a thumbs up, and also please remember to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, because it really helps me going forward. And I look forward to seeing you again on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.